Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. Did you know that in the early versions of the script for Star Wars, The Phantom Menace, the final duel between Qui-Gon Jinn, Obi-Wan, and Darth Maul, was supposed to be completely different? The character of Qui-Gon Jinn and the concept of Jedi spirits were inspired by Japanese samurai. George Lucas was a huge admirer of Akira Kurosawa, whose films influenced the creation of the entire saga. The design of Jedi swords and costumes reflects this inspiration. Darth Maul's skin and horns were influenced by Maori tattoos and demonic masks. Actor Ray Park, who portrayed Maul, was originally a professional stuntman, which added to the character's physical intensity. Jake Lloyd, who played young Anakin Skywalker, was chosen from over 3,000 candidates. He was only 8 years old at the time of filming, making his performance all the more impressive for his age. This film was the first Star Wars movie in 16 years, following the release of Episode 6. Lucas envisioned it as the start of a new trilogy that would explain Darth Vader's origin, leading to record-breaking box office earnings during its premiere. Darth Maul's double-bladed lightsaber was a groundbreaking addition at the time. Lucas wanted to make the combat scenes more dynamic and distinct from the original trilogy, which resulted in one of the saga's most memorable weapons. Ewan McGregor, who portrayed Obi-Wan Kenobi, studied the original trilogy to emulate Alec Guinness's acting style. He focused closely on Guinness's body language and vocal nuances to ensure continuity between the two portrayals. Legendary composer John Williams created the iconic track, Duel of the Fates, for the film. The piece, sung in Sanskrit, perfectly captures the epic struggle between good and evil, becoming one of the most celebrated Star Wars themes. Before being cast, Natalie Portman had never seen the original Star Wars films. Of course, they're a part of our culture, so I knew basic things like Yoda, Obi-Wan, Princess Leia's hairstyle, and "May the Force be with you," she said. But maybe that was a good thing. It might have helped me stand out in auditions by not taking the mythology too seriously. The lush planet of Naboo was filmed in Italy at the stunning Palace of Caserta. Its grand architecture and idyllic scenery became the perfect backdrop for the royal home of Queen Amidala. The character of Jar Jar Binks was created entirely using digital effects, a revolutionary step at the time. However, the character is widely regarded as one of the most disliked in the Star Wars franchise, sparking significant fan backlash. In the early versions of the script, the final duel between Qui-Gon Jinn, Obi-Wan, and Maul was meant to be much shorter and far less dramatic. However, George Lucas wanted this duel to be one of the most striking moments of the entire prequel trilogy. Originally, Maul was supposed to die rather quickly without much of a fight, but the choreographers and Lucas reworked the scene together to turn it into an iconic, dance-like lightsaber battle. They even added the energy barrier sequence, which heightened the tension as Obi-Wan watched helplessly while Qui-Gon met his fate. The character of Darth Sidious was shrouded in mystery for audiences. Ian McDiarmid, who also played Senator Palpatine, skillfully concealed his dual role, leaving viewers unaware that Sidious was the future Emperor. Liam Neeson accepted the role of Qui-Gon Jinn without reading the full script, trusting George Lucas's vision entirely. Lightsabers were created using plastic rods coated in reflective material. These rods reflected light, making it easier to digitally add the glowing effect in post-production. However, the rods frequently broke during intense fight scenes and needed frequent replacements. The duel between Obi-Wan, Qui-Gon, and Darth Maul was one of the most physically demanding sequences in the film. Ewan McGregor underwent intense martial arts training to prepare, and he sustained minor injuries during filming due to the speed and intensity of the choreography. Lucas's perfectionism meant the script was rewritten multiple times to match his vision exactly. Some scenes were reshot as many as 10 times to ensure they met his exacting standards. Liam Neeson's towering height of nearly 2 meters required special adjustments during filming. Larger door frames had to be constructed to accommodate Qui-Gon's imposing stature on set. The Phantom Menace introduced a deeper look into galactic politics, particularly the role of the Galactic Senate. It highlighted how Palpatine manipulated the system to rise to power, setting the stage for the saga's larger narrative. Although many scenes relied on CGI, some moments with R2-D2 used a manually operated model. Longtime R2-D2 operator Kenny Baker contributed to these scenes, keeping the character's original charm alive. Post-production for the film took nearly 2 years due to the extensive use of visual effects. Lucas and his team meticulously blended practical models, CGI, and live-action performances to create a seamless result. Ultimately, the film grossed over $1 billion worldwide. Star Wars Episode II: Attack of the Clones. Did you know that in the early stages of the Attack of the Clones script, the Battle of Geonosis was supposed to be completely different? The role of Anakin Skywalker was a massive breakthrough for Hayden Christensen. He beat out over 400 actors who auditioned for the role. Lucas chose him for his ability to transition seamlessly between innocence and the dark side. This film was the first Star Wars episode to be shot entirely digitally. Lucas aimed to showcase the power of new technology and pave the way for future digital films. Ewan McGregor had to wear a fake mustache for some reshoots during production. This was because he had shaved his real mustache for another project he was working on. The scene where Yoda fights Count Dooku was a massive surprise for audiences. It was the first time the Jedi Master appeared in full action combat. The filmmakers carefully combined animation with Christopher Lee's performance to bring it to life. Samuel L. Jackson personally requested a purple lightsaber for his character, Mace Windu. He wanted to stand out in the chaotic battle scenes. His request was granted, making his weapon one of the most iconic in the series. The scenes set on the planet Geonosis were filmed in the Tunisian desert. The crew faced extreme temperatures and challenges like sandstorms. Tunisia had been previously used as the location for Tatooine in Episode 4. John Williams composed the piece Across the Stars for the romantic scenes between Anakin and Padmé. This piece was designed to evoke the feeling of tragic love and destined attraction. Kamino, the planet known for its cloning technology, was inspired by rainy, futuristic cities in artwork and films. The team also drew inspiration from books and movies like Blade Runner. The duel between Anakin and Dooku in a dark room was initially planned to be longer. However, Lucas decided that a shorter version would be more impactful. The darkness was symbolic of Anakin's gradual descent to the dark side. The Geonosian arena scene was inspired by ancient Roman colosseums. The battle was designed to symbolize gladiatorial combat, but with a futuristic twist. Count Dooku's Sith name, Darth Tyrannus, was derived from the word tyrant. Lucas wanted the name to emphasize his sinister influence and malevolent nature. The name was also inspired by Roman and Latin terms. Lucas originally didn't plan to include the clone troopers. Instead, it was supposed to be a massive battle between the Jedi and the droid army. However, during production, the creators realized that the Jedi alone wouldn't look realistic in such a large-scale battle. That's why they added the clone army as a key element. Count Dooku's lightsaber featured a uniquely curved hilt. The design was inspired by ancient dueling swords, reflecting his elegant combat style. The curved hilt became iconic among fans of the series. Natalie Portman underwent intense training in combat and weapon handling. This was to prepare for Padmé's action scenes in the arena and against droids. Despite finding it physically challenging, she enjoyed the demanding aspect of the role. Yoda was fully digitized for the first time in Attack of the Clones, replacing his classic puppet form. The filmmakers used advanced technology to create realistic movements and emotions. It was one of the most groundbreaking animations of its time. The battle droids in the film underwent design updates compared to Episode 1. They were intended to appear more threatening and sophisticated. However, some retained their comedic elements to provide levity during intense moments. The The Clone Wars were inspired by real historical events such as civil wars and state divisions. Lucas drew from political intrigue and military strategies. He aimed to illustrate how democracy could easily slide into dictatorship. The death of Jango Fett was designed to be an iconic moment in the film. Mace Windu decapitates him during the battle on Geonosis, sparking Boba Fett's revenge arc. This moment was influenced by traditional samurai films. Christopher Lee was a skilled swordsman from a young age. Even at an advanced age, he performed most of his own combat scenes. His graceful movements added a unique depth to Count Dooku's character. Samuel L. Jackson was a longtime Star Wars fan before he was cast as Mace Windu. When he learned Lucas was making prequels, he personally reached out to request any role. Lucas was so impressed by his enthusiasm that he gave him one of the most prominent Jedi roles in the series. Star Wars Episode 3: Revenge of the Sith. Did you know that in the original script, Anakin was supposed to defeat Mace Windu in a completely different way? Anakin's turn to the dark side happens precisely at the midpoint of the film. The scene where he sits alone in the Jedi Council chamber, contemplating which side to choose, occurs at 1:10 a.m., marking the exact middle of the movie. Ewan McGregor and Hayden Christensen became good friends during filming. Their on-screen chemistry helped emphasize the tragedy of their friendship's downfall. Even years later, both actors fondly recall their time working together. Christensen underwent intense training for the role. He practiced lightsaber combat for several months and had to gain weight to make Anakin appear more physically imposing. His fighting style in the film was inspired by samurai choreography. George Lucas made a cameo in the film as Baron Papanoida, a blue-skinned politician seen in the opera scene. This character was later expanded upon in the animated series. Filming took place from June 30th to September 17th, 2003, across multiple countries, including Switzerland, China, England, Tunisia, Thailand, Australia, and Italy. Ian McDiarmid, Palpatine, enjoyed his screen time, as his character had the most presence out of all three prequels. The actor considers Palpatine's transformation into Darth Sidious to be the highlight of his career. The opening sequence of the film was one of the most visually complex parts to create. Over 40 ship models were built, and the battle scene included more than 2,400 visual effects. The battle itself was inspired by naval warfare from World War II. The duel between Anakin and Obi-Wan on Mustafar lasts over 12 minutes. To shoot this sequence, a massive set with real lava was constructed, taking months to complete. The transformation of the Republic into the Empire and Palpatine's rise to power were inspired by real-world dictators, such as Julius Caesar. Lucas also drew from the history of Nazi Germany to develop the political aspects of the film. Order 66 mirrors purges from ancient Rome. The sequence in which the clone army betrays the Jedi is an emotionally powerful moment. Each Jedi's demise was carefully planned to showcase their individual personalities. Samuel L. Jackson had the phrase, "bad motherfucker," engraved on his lightsaber. In the scene where Anakin kills Dooku, Christopher Lee's head was digitally added to a mannequin's body. Lee only provided facial footage. Lucas wanted the scene to be brutal, yet still suitable for younger audiences. General Grievous's signature cough, voiced by Matthew Wood, was inspired by George Lucas's own bronchitis-related cough during production. Anakin's clothing is noticeably darker than in previous films, symbolizing his transition to the dark side. His layered outfit visually represents his internal struggle. Anakin's burns and injuries were created using advanced visual effects. Christensen spent hours in the makeup chair for the Mustafar battle sequences. John Williams composed an emotional musical score, Battle of the Heroes, which is darker and more intense than previous themes in the saga. Droids like R2-D2 have more interactions and humorous moments in this film. Lucas wanted to show that droids are not just machines, but have distinct personalities. Wookiees were originally supposed to appear in Return of the Jedi, but Lucas replaced them with Ewoks due to budget constraints. In the original script, Windu was supposed to defeat Sidious, and together with Anakin, arrest him. In this version, Anakin would betray Mace at the last moment to protect Palpatine, leading to Mace's fall from the window. However, George Lucas ultimately decided to rewrite the scene to depict a deeper break in Anakin's transition to the dark side. In the climactic battle, Yoda faces Palpatine in the Galactic Senate. The fight is both physical and symbolic, with the destruction of the Senate chamber representing the fall of the Republic. In the end, Yoda acknowledges his defeat and chooses exile, realizing that the Jedi have lost touch with the galaxy and must evolve if they are to return. Star Wars Episode 4: A New Hope. Did you know that in the early script drafts of Star Wars: A New Hope, the finale with the Battle of the Death Star was originally envisioned completely differently? Obi-Wan's death was not originally in the script. George Lucas added it during filming to give the story more emotional depth. In early versions of the script, Luke was intended to be a woman. However, George Lucas later changed the gender to align more with traditional sci-fi heroes. Han Solo was initially described as a green-skinned character with gills. He was later reimagined as the charismatic smuggler played by Harrison Ford. The character of Wookiee Chewbacca was inspired by Lucas's Alaskan Malamute, who used to sit in the passenger seat of his car. The dog, named Indiana, also served as the inspiration for the name Indiana Jones. Leia's iconic hairstyle with buns on the sides of her head was inspired by traditional hairstyles worn by Mexican revolutionaries in the early 20th century. The hairstyle was meant to symbolize her strength and independence. The studio didn't believe Star Wars would be successful and limited Lucas's budget. However, Lucas took a risk and invested his own money to complete the film. The movie's success granted him financial independence from the studios. The battles in A New Hope were inspired by footage from World War II documentaries. Lucas used real aerial maneuvers as the basis for the movements of X-Wings and TIE fighters. Darth Vader's helmet design was inspired by German helmets from World War II, with added samurai elements to enhance his menacing appearance. In the early script drafts, the finale with the Battle of the Death Star was envisioned completely differently. Lucas originally planned for the Death Star to be destroyed only in the third film, with the first movie ending simply with the rebels escaping its reach. However, during production, he made a dramatic change to give the film a closed and satisfying conclusion, with Luke successfully hitting the Death Star's critical point using the Force. Additionally, Vader was not supposed to play a key role in the final battle. He was originally just one of the secondary villains. His character was expanded when Lucas realized his true potential. The Jawas, the small traders from Tatooine, were played by local Tunisian children. The character of Obi-Wan was inspired by old samurai films by Akira Kurosawa. Lucas wanted Obi-Wan to embody the wise mentor and warrior archetype. The sand dunes of Tatooine were filmed in Tunisia. Many of the structures built for the film are still used by locals today. The sounds made by R2-D2 were created by sound designer Ben Burt, who combined electronic effects with his own voice. He used a mixer and a synthesizer to produce R2-D2's distinctive beeps and clicks. The sound of the lightsaber was created by combining the hum of an old TV set with the buzzing of a film projector. Sound designer Ben Burt experimented extensively to find the perfect combination. While filming in Tunisia, several unexpected sandstorms damaged the sets and delayed production. These natural conditions ultimately added authenticity to the scenes. The sound of TIE fighters was created by combining the noise of an elephant and a car speeding by at high velocity. Due to the limited budget, many costumes were handmade and improvised. For example, stormtrooper helmets were made from plastic used for illuminated signs. In the original versions of the script, Leia was not intended to be Luke's sister. This idea was added in later films, which explains the slight romantic tension between them in A New Hope. Peter Cushing, Grand Moff Tarkin, disliked the military boots he was required to wear for the role. During filming, he often wore slippers instead, which were never visible on camera, allowing him to feel more comfortable. Leia was written as a strong and confident character, which was uncommon for female heroines in the 1970s. Carrie Fisher added sarcasm and courage to the role, and scenes like the one where she insults Tarkin were improvised. Star Wars Episode 5: The Empire Strikes Back. Did you know that Lucas and Kirshner came up with the idea for the major plot twist during filming, and the actors only found out about it at the movie's premiere? Yoda was originally conceived as a human character, not a puppet. Early designs envisioned him as an old, wise man, but Lucas decided on a puppet to give Yoda a more mystical and supernatural quality. Before filming, Mark Hamill seriously injured his face in a car accident. The scene with the Wampa at the beginning of the film was written to explain his scars. This allowed the movie to adapt to reality instead of relying on excessive makeup. The exterior scenes of the planet Hoth were filmed on the Hardanger-Jukolen Glacier in Norway. During production, the crew experienced one of the worst snowstorms in years. Some of Hamill's snow scenes were even filmed directly outside the hotel doors due to the extreme weather. This episode marked the first appearance of Emperor Palpatine. Originally, the character was portrayed by actress Marjorie Eaton with facial prosthetics and chimpanzee eyes. Ian McDiarmid took over the role in Return of the Jedi and subsequent films. The name Yoda comes from the Hebrew word Yodia, meaning knowing. Yoda's puppet was designed by legendary creator Jim Henson, but the character was brought to life by Frank Oz. Oz operated Yoda using a complex system of levers and strings. The music for the film was composed by the legendary John Williams. This was the first time the iconic Imperial March, synonymous with Darth Vader, was introduced. The scene with Han Solo frozen in carbonite was originally a backup plan. At the time, Harrison Ford was only contracted for 2 films. Freezing Han was a way to prepare for the possibility that Ford might not return for the 3rd installment. Ford often improvised his lines. The scene where Leia says, "I love you," and Han replies, "I know," was not in the script. Lucas deliberately kept the film's budget outside of Hollywood to maintain greater control over production. In 1981, the film won an Academy Award for Best Sound Effects and Special Effects. The line, "No, I am your father," was a closely guarded secret during filming. On set, the actors heard the line, "Obi-Wan killed your father." Only George Lucas, director Irvin Kershner, and James E. Jones, the voice of Vader, knew the true line. This trick helped keep the secret until the movie's release. The special effects for the space battles were revolutionary for their time. Miniature models of ships were filmed using advanced motion control techniques, resulting in incredibly realistic and captivating visuals. The scene where Han and Leia arrive on Bespin showcased some of the film's most impressive technical effects. The city planet was created using new technologies, and despite spatial limitations, its realistic lighting made it stunning. The names of the planets were chosen carefully for their symbolic meaning. For example, Hoth is considered one of the coldest and most desolate names, perfectly capturing the icy atmosphere of the planet. The title, The Empire Strikes Back, had a dual meaning. It literally described the Empire's resurgence, but also referenced Lucas's stance against critics of the first film who doubted the series' potential for success. Billy D. Williams, Lando Calrissian, was one of the first African-American actors to have a prominent role in a sci-fi blockbuster. His character added depth to the story with his charm and sometimes unpredictable nature. The Battle of Hoth was inspired by World War II films depicting tank battles. The creators studied old war tactics to give the scenes greater authenticity. Ford was known for performing many of his stunts himself. During filming on Hoth, he insisted on participating in all action scenes, which led to a few minor injuries. Although Alec Guinness was initially skeptical about returning, he eventually recognized Obi-Wan Kenobi as an essential character symbolizing wisdom and sacrifice. His performance became iconic and influenced Ewan McGregor's portrayal in later films. Star Wars Episode 5: The Empire Strikes Back. In an early version of the script, the finale was completely different. George Lucas originally planned a much darker ending for the entire trilogy. Ewoks were originally supposed to be Wookiees, but due to budget constraints, their race was downsized, and the Ewoks were created. The Ewok language was crafted using a combination of several real languages, including Tibetan and Kalmyk. Actor Ian McDiarmid, who played Emperor Palpatine, spent hours in makeup to achieve his terrifying appearance. Initially, the character's voice was to be dubbed by another actor, but McDiarmid's performance was so convincing that it was kept as is. The original title of the film was supposed to be Revenge of the Jedi, but George Lucas changed it because he felt that Jedi do not seek revenge. The scene where Luke removes Vader's mask was one of the first to be filmed. George Lucas wanted Vader's redemption to remain the emotional climax of the movie. Luke Skywalker replaced his blue lightsaber with a green one because the blue color was difficult to see against Tatooine's bright sky. However, the scene where Luke assembles his lightsaber was cut from the film. The original dance scene in Jabba's palace featured different music and choreography. For the 1997 special edition, it was replaced with a modernized song titled Jedi Rocks. The scenes on the forest moon of Endor were filmed in Redwood National Park in California. The character of Jabba the Hutt was a giant puppet operated by 3 people. One controlled the eyes and eyebrows, another the head and mouth, and the third the tail. The puppet weighed over 900 kilograms. During production, the film was shot under the code name Blue Harvest to keep filming a secret from fans and the media. Harrison Ford initially did not want to continue his role as Han Solo. George Lucas convinced him by emphasizing that Han's character was essential to the saga's conclusion. As a result, Han Solo was not killed off as originally planned. The speeder bike scenes on Endor were created using a combination of practical effects and a film trick known as motion blur. The battle over Endor involved a mix of models, miniatures, and optical effects. It was one of the most complex visual effects sequences of its time. Lucasfilm used nearly 40 different ships and over 200 shots to create this grand scene. In an early version of the script, the finale was completely different. Lucas originally planned a much darker ending for the entire trilogy. One of the concepts involved Luke Skywalker turning to the dark side after defeating Emperor Palpatine and taking Vader's place as the new Sith Lord. In this version, Luke would put on Vader's mask and declare, "Now I am Vader, ruler of the galaxy." This drastic twist was meant to show how easily a hero's journey could turn into a fall to the dark side. However, Lucas ultimately decided on a more optimistic and triumphant conclusion. He chose a storyline where Luke resists temptation and brings his father back to the light side. The name Ewok is never mentioned in the film, yet fans know it thanks to marketing and toys. Their design was inspired by George Lucas's dogs, particularly the Brussels Griffon breed. The Rancor in Jabba's palace was originally intended to be a man in a suit. However, this concept did not work, so it was replaced with a puppet animated using stop-motion techniques. Emperor Palpatine's throne room was designed to resemble a Gothic cathedral. The dark, minimalist lines symbolized his absolute power, while the circular window behind his throne evoked the illusion of an eye watching over the galaxy. The scene where Darth Vader saves Luke Skywalker and kills Emperor Palpatine was not in the original script. It was added during the final story revisions when George Lucas decided to include it to complete Vader's redemptive arc and show that there was still good in him. The film won an Academy Award for Special Achievement in Visual Effects. One of the funniest moments, where Han Solo accidentally steps on a branch, was an improvisation by Harrison Ford. This moment became one of his signature humorous additions, showing that even heroes can have clumsy moments. The Ewoks use simple bows and arrows, yet they manage to damage the technologically advanced stormtroopers. This contrast was intended to emphasize that courage and strategy can overcome even the most advanced technology.
Did any of these facts catch your attention, or do you think we missed something? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss any of our future videos.